Hi, my name is Erin Fong, and for fieldwork, I am at an inpatient rehab unit. For my OBK, I decided to base my kit on a client who has a right below the knee amputation. Client goals were to increase activity tolerance and safe completion during ADLs, specifically toileting. My occupation-based kit is named the Basic Handiwork and Cart Maintenance Kit. It has 3 sides in one box, all filled with different simulations of cart maintenance and handiwork, and then there's another separate box that goes about 5 feet away from the main one. I chose this kit for my client because prior to his amputation, he was a really big fan of working on cars and being the family's handyman. This relates to occupational performance because the kit is done in a standing position with a little bit of functional mobility as toileting is done, and even occupations such as putting the dishes away. This was a significant factor because the client had significant decreased activity tolerance during toileting. Modifications needed for implementation of this OBK included not doing the whole OBK in one go, but just breaking it into sections and taking breaks, doing portions of it in seated position when standing was too strenuous, bringing box number 2 closer if 5 feet apart was too far away, and of course, providing instruction if needed. This is skilled OT as it relates to and during the process of toileting. There is instruction that can be given on energy conservation techniques, especially identifying when it is time to sit down to prevent falls, as this client was very persistent and determined and would probably try to push through the fatigue. Also, there is a chance to provide correct technique on the sit to stand during the beginning of the treatment and then stand to sit at the end of the treatment.
So in the beginning, you can cue the client to stand up using safe technique, and they will then have to use the cable cords to simulate jumping a car. As you can see, it might take a while, so you might want to make sure that the cords are untangled prior to starting the activity. This is a section where functional mobility is introduced, so you will want to make sure that you are able to cue the client to hold on to the cords if they're using a wheelchair or a wheeled walker to ensure that they're using proper technique. As the client progresses, you can always consider moving box number 2 and box number 1 further apart so they have to use functional mobility to get to further distances. We just finished side number 1, now we are moving on to side number 2. This is a simulation of refilling your wiper fluid. So as you can see, you have to open the cap and then pour in the simulated liquid. I just used water. The next simulation is checking the engine oil, so I use a pipe cleaner to mimic the dipstick, and I insert it and then pull it out to check the status of the engine oil. Moving on to box side number 3, this is the side with the nuts and bolts and the different kind of handiwork motions that can be completed. As this activity is supposed to be done in standing for as long as possible, this addresses activity tolerance as you are moving and as the patient is doing something meaningful to them. This hopefully will translate over to activity tolerance needed for ADLs, especially toileting, since that is what we were working on with the patient. Also, the patient I was working with did not have any fine motor coordination issues, but if it is applicable to the patient that is using this, then that can definitely be introduced as this has a lot of pinching movements. Close-up of box side number 2 shows the wiper fluid. You would open up the cap and insert the fluid, just like that. Close that. Then for the engine oil, you would use your mock dipstick. Push it in there and pull it out to check the status. This is a close-up of box side number 3. You would use this and screw it one way to make it tighter and screw it the other way to make it looser. And this side just includes some nuts and bolts. So you would screw on and screw off.